Ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome to today's session on email management. My name is Martin. I am the legal project manager at the club based in Brussels. And today we are very happy to welcome back Nolia to discuss further how to optimize the time spent with your emails, specifically for corporate counsel. I would like to note that if you have any questions, feel free to ask them at the chat box at the bottom right corner. And without further ado, I will give the floor to Sien.
Thank you very much, Martin. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar about how to cut your email time in half. My name is Sien, and I will guide you through this whole webinar. As Martin already mentioned before, if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to drop them in the chat box below, and we'll give these answers to the experts as soon as possible during the presentation. But I can see that we already have a lot of new participants, also from all over the world. So welcome everyone, even from which time zone you're dialing in today. Let's have a little flashback. It's not the first webinar that Nolia organizes together with ECLA. It's the 6th episode of our ECLA webinar series this year. We've tackled a lot of different topics, going from KPIs for legal departments, how to create a perfect digital workplace, and we've also talked about contract lifecycle management. But today's focus will be on email management for corporate legal counsel. But to kick off this webinar, we have a question for you. How much time do you think you spend every day on reading and answering emails or searching for information in your email box? I'm going to start the poll in a couple of seconds, so think about it and select the option that suits you best. So the poll is running. Normally you see it on the screen. Oh yeah, and I see the votes already coming in. If you're not really sure about how much time you spend on a daily basis, choose the one that you think is the most right one. Sometimes it looks longer that you're working on your email box, but I see that a lot of people are thinking the same. I see not a lot of people who are selecting maximum 1 hour. Okay, I'm going to close the poll in 10 seconds. So if you did not vote, please do so. Okay. Still a lot of people who are answering. I'm going to end the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so normally I can share the results right now. All right, let's have a look at the results. How much time do you spend every day on reading emails and answering emails or searching for information? A lot of people answered approximately 3 hours, and also a lot of people answered more than 3 hours. So the goal of today's webinar is to cut this email time in half. And who is going to help us with that? We have 2 digital legal experts. Some of you might already know them, Hans van Heegen and Yves Lefer. Welcome, gentlemen. Please, can you briefly introduce yourself to the audience?
Thank you, Sien. So my name is Hans van Heegen. I am the CEO and founder of Nolia, and I'm in information and knowledge management since 25 years, and in legal perspective over 15 years. So I think I have a nice background. I'm not legal, I'm an engineer, but with a management and legal perspective already for 25 years. So.
Okay, interesting. Welcome, Yves.
Good morning, everyone. A lot of people here today, excited to be here in this webinar. My name is Yves Lefer. I am a digital legal expert for almost 10 years within Nolia, assisting corporate legal departments across the globe in their digitalization, in their different processes, and obviously also in email management, since we just saw that most of you indicated you spend over 3 hours a day in email management, email classification, etc. So that's almost half of your day. So it's, I think, quite interesting to learn how we can or how you can make your time more effective and reduce the time that you spend in email management.
Okay, thank you very much, Yves. Yves and Hans, you both work at the company Nolia. Nolia offers solutions regarding email management, but can you tell us a little bit more about the company?
Yes, of course, Sien. Thank you. So Nolia is a software company that provides a digital platform for enterprise legal management, where we cover processes like contract lifecycle management, generic matter management, litigation management, knowledge management, and also email archiving, of course, which is interrelated within those processes. We support corporate legal departments across the globe, ranging from small to very large sized legal departments, but also all their stakeholders, collaborating with them. So it's a collaboration platform for enterprise legal management. We have been recognized and followed by Gartner as being a representative vendor worldwide, following our vision and our methodology when it comes to information and knowledge management in a broader perspective.
Okay, thank you very much, Yves. Hans, you have a lot of experience regarding information and knowledge management. Can you give some context in this webinar about that as well?
Sure. So if you want to tackle an issue, a problem in an organization as legal, you are certainly aware that you need to understand the context and that you don't have to jump into the details of a matter of a case. So to give you a picture on the landscape on information inside your organization, there are a lot of files, there are a lot of documents, there are a lot of sources, and there are a lot of people with relevant expertise inside their heads. Now, if you look to the value of information in your organization, then it's undisputable today that legal cases, documents, and emails in that context are of the utmost importance for your organization. Next comes knowledge, expertise. Next comes your operational documents and email, and your background and legacy is perceived as being the least valuable. Now, if we refer to today's topic on emails, emails appear everywhere. They appear in your legacy, they appear in your operations, they even appear in knowledge environments, since a lot of answers are hidden, stored in your emails. And of course, you are well aware that for your legal cases, your matters, emails are the most used communication flow. When we talk about email systems, we mean that we talk about Gmail as well as Microsoft Outlook. So it's independent of the system you are using. User interface, the small mechanisms may be different, but at the end, it's the same.
Okay, thank you very much, Hans. So I want to have a quick look at today's agenda. We're going to give you some insights about how to cut your email time in half. So we sat together with the two experts and have decided to cover these topics that you can see. Why? Because these might be the solution to the big information overload you're currently facing regarding emails today. So we'll talk about definitions, we'll talk about constraints, the needs, opportunities, and also give you a very specific view on the solution for today's email management problem. And the first topic will be, what is email management exactly, and what does this specifically mean for the legal departments?
Thank you, Sien. So I don't think we need to explain to you what emails are. Of course, it is obvious that email is still the way most people, and also you as a legal counsel, as a corporate legal counsel, you exchange information, expertise, knowledge, everything goes through email, internally and externally. So that is a medium that is, of course, still existing. Now, we see that the importance of email will diminish in the future, but today, still, everything goes through email, so that won't change on a short term. So since for you also something we notice here in Europe, but also outside Europe, as a legal counsel, you're not willing to delete any information in email because you do not know what is important or not. So you keep a lot of email. So that means that your email accounts continue to grow and information continues to grow as well. And you need to manage that information. Managing means that you need to categorize that email and you need to classify those email. Now, since the information load is growing and you're receiving so many emails, that is not possible to do that on a manual basis anymore, because you lose way too much time and it's not efficient anymore. So automation in classification, in categorization is not something that is nice to have. It becomes a necessity. It becomes something basic. It becomes a basic requirement. And that's what we're going to talk about now. So Hans, if you can maybe elaborate a little bit, or if you can maybe explain what type of email a legal counsel is confronted with.
Thank you. I can, of course, not speak for all legal counsels or legal professionals, but if we look with our customers to the types of requests, emails, correspondences they receive, you can list different types. It's about legal advice, it's about reviewing, it's about corporate docs, about contract drafting or templates, or contract negotiation. So those 3, 4 requesting a review on third-party contracts are things that are in the contract sphere. You have correspondence on litigation with management. You also have just what we call chat emails, where you chat with a colleague on where to have the lunch this noon or things like that. There are also a lot of mails that does not have a direct relevance for matters, for cases, for legal subjects, but are more background or lessons learned or things you need to know as a legal. Sometimes you may receive complaints or requests related to GDPR. So I can imagine you have also other types of emails, but just to give you a little bit context, in that vast majority of emails, those are the most appearing types of emails that all require a different solution when you want to handle and decrease your effort on emails. Now, those solving those types of emails, you can split it into a short-term and a mid-term vision. If you have nothing today, your short-term will be about those 3 topics. And your mid-term will be more on the 3 at the right. If you have already something in your organization, you may be in between those 2 or already switching to that mid-term vision. But be aware, there is something as your current status, and depending on that current status, you will have a slightly different approach on solving your email issues.
Okay, thank you very much, Hans. The next topic will go about constraints, legal, cultural, operational, and technical constraints. Experts, can you please elaborate a little bit more on that?
Sure. First of all, you have your legal constraints. Most of you are in Europe, but also outside Europe, you have more and more, next to GDPR, data privacy regulations or localization rules that makes it quite difficult in managing emails, in managing documents, in managing data about people. Now, next to GDPR, you have, of course, also on the national level, legislation about managing and archiving emails. We are based in Belgium. In Belgium, for example, there are the famous CAO 81, who is stipulating that as a company, you don't have access to the mailbox of an employee unless you have a written approval for that. On a European level, there are also some legislations, for example, stipulating that an employee has the right to block emails and subjects from being processed by central systems, and so on. So look also to your local legislation, because there is a big risk that you have some stipulations on what you are allowed to do as a company on managing emails. Also be aware that emails are quite often used by systems for profiling users. And if we then switch back to GDPR, profiling is again forbidden within the GDPR context unless you have a written approval of the people you are profiling, and so on. So next to those legal constraints, you have also cultural and operational constraints. For example, in the public sector in Western Europe, it's quite common that your personal mailbox is seen as a private mailbox. Where in companies, there it's more accepted that your mailbox from a certain level is shared with colleagues to facilitate your work together with your colleagues. Be aware that in both cases you need other security rules when you are archiving or processing emails. Larger companies have a representation of unions. I had once, many years ago, a complete implementation ready. Management agreed, IT agreed, business people agreed, but we jointly forget to inform unions, and before going operational, the system was blocked. It was a one-time exception, but it's an example of be aware that you are not, as IT, as legal, alone in the organization, and that you need to inform other people. And a third element is, does not underestimate the effort of the user. And not all users have the time to manage to archive and to share. So that means that you should look for automated solutions or semi-automated solutions to avoid that the effort should spend too much, and that the user should spend too much effort on managing and archiving emails. And the last element is on technical constraints. An email server is designed and developed to send and receive emails. An email server is not designed and developed to archive, to search, or to govern your emails. So an email server is a communication platform. It's not an archiving platform. I had once a customer where the marketing responsible, no, it was not seen, was managing all the leaflets. The source files of the leaflets of that company was stored in her private mailbox in some subfolders, so nobody within that organization had access to those leaflets. So be aware of situations like that. Another technical constraint today is the shift towards cloud solutions. And with cloud solutions, you don't have a guarantee on where your emails are stored. It can be in Belgium, can be in Germany, in Sweden, in Ireland, but it can also be in India, in China, in the US. You just don't know. And another thing on cloud solutions is limitations on storage, which is also applicable when you are talking about internal mail system. So cloud gives an extra degree of technical constraints that makes it sometimes difficult. And then the formats. Microsoft basically is an MSG format, and Google and others are basically using EML as format. And they are not always compatible, interchangeable, and things like that.
Thank you, Hans. Let's go a little bit more in depth in the needs in operations, case management, and on compliance. Yves, I think you are going to tell us a little bit more about these topics.
Yes, Sien, indeed. Thank you. So you have needs in operations, you have needs in matters, you have needs in compliance. So let's dive very briefly into that. You all have questions about how you can manage the overflow of your email. Spending more than 3 hours a day, you have overflow. So we'll dive into that immediately. You'll have questions and needs, of course, in how can you be assisted in the classification of those emails? How can you be assisted in the identification of what is important, what is relevant, and what is not? What are emails that are generating tasks or requiring a specific task for yourselves, for others? What emails generate workflows? What emails should or not be shared with your colleagues or with third parties? When it comes to needs in the legal matter, in the legal case that you're managing, you, of course, as a legal counsel, have responsibilities in risk management, in having overviews and having information at hand, so you don't want to miss any information. So how can you make sure that you are assisted in the centralization of relevant information without having to do it yourself? And of course, you don't want to miss deadlines. You don't want to miss deadlines on tasks, on workflows. You want to have a 360-degree view when you are managing a case, when you need very quickly information on a specific case and you need correspondence, you need the emails, whether it's an email of 5 years ago or an email of last week, an email that is not coming from your mailbox, but probably from others as well. You need to have that at hand, respecting security, respecting confidentiality, of course. You will have standardized templates when you want to create emails, when you want to send emails. You will want to capture the negotiation of a contract, where it's a lot is done by email. When you're sending emails and receiving emails through third parties, how can you capture that process of relevant information in those emails? And of course, you're answering a lot of questions from your internal customers. You're giving advice through email. Not always in a proper document. It's often by email, by answering questions. So you want to be able to retrieve that information, to capture it, to capture the knowledge, to be able to reuse it. And then, of course, compliance. Hans already mentioned it. Email is something very touchy. It's a touchy topic because it's about confidentiality, it's about privacy, it's about GDPR. If you're in Europe, but also localization laws in other countries that are very similar and often more severe than GDPR, require the same restrictions. So GDPR is a very important one when it comes to compliance. You also want to be compliant to your contractual agreements, and then you want to capture the right information that is circling around in email. You want to be compliant with legislation, with procedures, with standards. So a lot of elements that need to be taken into account. And if you have to manage and monitor this manually, it becomes a mess.
Okay.
There was still, sorry, Sien. Yeah, sorry. So these are the these are the needs that need to be managed. But you also have a lot of opportunities in the overflow and the chaos of email. So Hans, I think you are able to assist us and guide us a little bit on a lot of opportunities offered by the vast chaos of emails.
Thank you. I think you did that on purpose, Yves, to demonstrate that it's not pre-recorded. All right. So emails are not only a burden. Emails are also full of opportunities. And basically, there are 3 big opportunities in it. Although there are 5 over here, but they can split into 3 groups. First of all, it's about the hidden value and the perspective of reuse, potential reuse. Not only reuse on documents, but also reuse on advices, similarities in other cases, things like that. So how can you save your knowledge sitting in those emails? That's a big opportunity for reuse and revaluing, remonetizing your content, your expertise that's already written down. A second domain is about discovery and overviews. Emails are a burden if you want to make a timeline on a certain subject in regard of a certain legislation case. So, but it's also an opportunity. With today's technology, it's quite easy to generate just overviews. And then the third one is a little bit my middle name since 22 years. It's about Jerry, just enough relevant information. Emails are the contrary. Emails are giving information at the moment that you are busy with something else, and at the moment you need that email, you don't find them back. So being aware that you need only important communication and that the other ones are background or automatically stored in a matter and things like that is a big opportunity in gaining control on your emails.
Okay, thank you, Hans. We've talked a lot about the burden of emails, the problems that everyone is facing each day, but how are we going to learn the audience now on how to improve email management? How can they cut their time in half? What are solutions that are available for the audience?
Well, indeed, we talked about the landscape, about the legal and technical and operational constraints, about the practical requirements and the opportunities. Now, based on that, taking into account the short-term and the longer-term or the mid-term vision you want to apply in your organization, there are the 4 types of values of emails in your information landscape, knowing the legal impact, the knowledge, the operations, and the legacy. And for all of them, you have a number of concerns, approaches, things you can do. Now, the easiest way to explain it is this picture. It's based on the maturity. And the maturity means, what is your current situation? If you have nothing, or you have already certain types of policies and solutions and ways of working, how can you grow in your email management? And if we look to the first one, the first step, there you have no policies, you have no central archiving, you don't have a way of working where you share your emails with colleagues. So it's an environment where a lot of emails are sent, for example, on people asking to be informed or looking for certain type of information. And then as a legal, it's for you very difficult to construct correspondences, dialogues via email when it comes to a certain conflict, claim, or discussion with a customer or supplier. So that's your first level. Now, if you are there, what's the first thing you should do is setting up an email policy. It can be quite easy, it can be very elaborated, but basically an email policy is about what to archive, how to archive, what to share, with who and what not. Because you also need to define security principles and you need to define your archiving rules. Archiving rules means how long will you keep certain information. In those 5 elements, security principles are probably the most difficult. Now, once you have that, there are also other related topics you need or can integrate in your email policy. For example, best practices on what to send and what not to send on outbound mails. Tips and tricks on how to communicate with customers or suppliers. Tips and tricks on how to handle and make sure that GDPR is not violated. And also, certainly keep in mind with your local or, if applicable, European regulations that apply on emails. So your email policy is basically saying to your colleagues, in communication with them, in agreement with them, this is how we want to handle our emails in our organization. If you don't tell your colleagues, they will not act as you want to. So your email policy is a way of stating and a way of agreeing with your colleagues on how to handle those emails. A next step is what we call level 1, email archiving. It's making sure that the important emails are not lost, that they are available to the colleagues, to you as a legal, when there is a dispute, and also on defining what metadata should be added to those emails. Taking into account, of course, your agreed policy, your regulations. So basically, this is a way of telling or giving the tools to your colleagues of archiving emails that they receive for a matter, for a project, on a certain customer, on another type of relation, and that they are centrally stored and made available within the security rules, within the policy agreed within your organization. So then we are already on level 2. Level 1 processing, the second step in your archiving. The next step is that you don't just archive all those emails in a central repository, but that they are dedicated to certain matters manually or automatically. Today's technology, as we do, should provide means that emails are stored automatically in the right matters. Storing emails in a matter also means think about deduplication. If I send an email to 10 colleagues, that email is 11 times present in the email server. Do you want to keep all 11 copies, or do you only want to keep 1 copy? The same with attachments. For legal reasons, we keep the attachments in the emails, but it's much more convenient for a user if attachments are also stored separately in your matter. And then again, how can you keep track of the link between the email and the attachment? And how do you deal with the duplication? Now you have emails linked to matters, but you also have emails, for example, related to knowledge, to lessons learned, that you cannot assign to a specific matter. Therefore, we have other procedures or other locations where you can store them. When you store emails in a matter, be also aware or foresee it in your policy that you have security rules, definitions. An easy way is saying only the people that are in the to or the from or the CC have access rights to the email. That's easy, but that's not really convenient when you want to work together on a certain case, because that means that, for example, a case owner, a matter owner, could not have access to certain emails that are stored in that matter. So think about your security. The fourth step is about automation. Automation on your outbound mails, in using smart templates, reusing content from your matter. Integrating automatically reference indicators so that the system can easily process those emails automatically without your involvement. When I say processing, it's about central archiving, adding them to a matter, ultimately detecting if an action is required by a certain user. Processing does not mean that the system will automatically answer emails. That's maybe step 6 or 7 for the future when technology is further evolving. An important topic is also automatic capturing of chains of emails. When you are sending and receiving emails, for example, in a contract negotiation, today's technology is able to detect the dependency of those emails and store them together inside your matter as, for example, contract negotiation. And the 5th step is about more advanced processing, where there are new techniques like topic detection that allows you to discover topic subjects in emails and that allow you to group them together. Once you have those topic subjects, you can construct timelines on a certain topic within a case or across multiple matters. There are new technologies coming up on exception detection inside your email correspondence, and that it's able to handle emails that are exceptional or notifying them to certain persons. There are new tools that allow you, before sending out emails, that they are first validated against GDPR regulation. You can do the same on contracts, on legislation. So looking to the content of an email, understand the meaning of an email and compare that meaning with the meaning of legislation or contents of contracts. So it goes from nothing to very, very advanced. And it's up to you where you are today and how you can grow from one step to another. Don't think that from 0 you are able to jump to level 5, because it makes no sense. You need those intermediate steps from 0 to 5 to grow on your email management, and each step will give you new benefits, new returns, freeing up time, avoiding stress when it comes to that huge volume of emails that you are receiving and processing.
Okay, thank you very much, Hans. Maybe it's about time to dive more into the practice to see how, for example, tools or other software solutions can be an added value to make these improvements in email management. And I think Yves is going to show us how it could work for legal departments, because of course, you don't have to do everything manually. As Hans already mentioned quite often, a lot of things can be automated. And Yves, I think the floor is yours to show us how.
Yes, thank you, Sien. Yeah, we've talked a lot about theory, about practices, how to manage emails and what different steps you can take. If you have nothing, you have to start small, of course. So let's dive now into something that is very tangible, very practical, how it could actually work. The example that I'm going to share here with you is within Microsoft Outlook, whether it's Exchange or Office 365, doesn't matter. Of course, the same principles or the same techniques, the same benefits you can have within Google Mail, within Gmail. Now, what you see here is an inbox of a person receiving emails, and on the left-hand side you have folders that you use to create matters, to create projects that you're working on, cases where you classify email. Now, every day you receive a lot of email and you need to classify them. Whether you classify them here on the left-hand side in folders, or you just use one folder where you have, for example, a folder where you say, I just dump there all email that is relevant, that you can choose. If you are working on a similar basis on 2,000 cases at a time, it doesn't make sense to make separate folders. If you have like 10 cases that you're actively working on, it can make a lot of sense. Now, regardless what you're doing, Nolia, for example, offers you techniques to do it entirely automated. That means that when you receive an email, so let me just start the little demonstration here. When you receive an email that is talking about a certain matter that you're working on, and on the left-hand side you have a matter folder which is containing all information about that particular matter, you just need to take that email and just drop it in that folder. By dropping it in that folder, the system will know that there is a new email, will actually pick up this email. So it's like a little bus that comes around at a certain frequency. The certain frequency can be a couple of minutes, it can be a couple of hours, it can be a couple of days. So the only thing that you need to do is just drop that email in that folder, and then the bus will come around, will pick up the email, will bring it towards the right matter in your system. And here you see a system. It's the Nolia system. Of course, you need a system to centralize that information, to centralize the information not only coming from your email box, but also from another email box. So as you can see here, you have different matters that are centralized within the system. So these are like your binders that you have of different cases that you're keeping in your filing cupboard in your office. Of course, this is in a digital way. And if you go here to a specific matter, which is called here, what you see, the Anton trade agreement, for example, you open that matter, and then of course the objective that you have is that you have a 360-degree view of this entire matter, including all email that is sitting in this matter. And these email that are centralized here in this matter are getting there from an entirely automated way, so that you don't have to do it yourself. So I'm just taking the video a little further here. So that email that you see here was the email that was just picked up out of the Outlook folder without me having to do anything. Now that email also contains an attachment, as you see, very important. The attachment goes along, and the attachment is also separated, separately within a Documents tab, allowing you to have immediate access to that particular document, so that you don't have to open email, etc. Now, very important also in that process of the email going with the bus from your Outlook account towards a centralized system, there's a lot of things that are happening with that email. Like, for example, the entire indexation. So the whole email, the subject, the content of that email, but also all attachments, whether you have a Word document in attachment, an Excel, a PowerPoint, or a PDF, even if it's a scanned PDF document, the system will automatically OCR that document, meaning that all the content inside the document becomes available, so that you can actually also full text search on it. You can Google-wide search on all that information without having to leave Outlook, without having to classify anything. It goes automatically centralized in the system in the right matter for you to retrieve, but also obviously for your colleagues that have access to that matter. They can also retrieve that specific email that is very important to interpret the context or to have a 360-degree view on your email and on your entire matter, of course. So important to remember is you do not have to put any effort in classification, and certainly you do not have to leave your Outlook or your email environment, because otherwise it becomes a mess. If you spend 3 hours a day in your Outlook account and each email you need to classify, you need to drop it outside your Outlook, it does not work. So either you drop it in a folder where it's automatically picked up, or you just leave it where it is in your inbox and the system will pick it up and will classify it automatically based on auto classification techniques, using artificial intelligence, retrieving the matter name, the matter number, retrieving subjects, taking along all relevant metadata, who sent, who received, at what date, all the relevant content in the email, in the attachment, everything is indexed to be able to search on it and to be able to auto-classify on it. So this is an example of how it could work. Important to remember is that you don't have to put in any effort, that the system will do it for you, and it's centralized, secured for risk management perspectives, but also for reuse and search perspectives. So that was it seen when it comes to sharing a practical example.
Okay, thank you very much, Yves. There was a question from someone who asked if the presentation will be made available. Of course, we will share the presentation with everyone after the webinar took place. So we've just saw the video that Yves shared with us, how a tool can help you, how software solutions are able to help you go through these different maturities levels on how to improve email management and to save time. Because of course, you don't have to do everything manually or by yourself. So let me ask you a last question in this webinar. After hearing this big amount of information that Hans has shared with you, you saw what Yves let us know about how tools can help us. What are your top 3 email priorities after this webinar? Is it filing emails in the right matters? Is it setting up email governance? Is it improving compliance? Auto-archiving emails? Reducing the information overload? Or informing your colleagues better? I'm going to start a poll in a couple of seconds. So please let us know what are your top 3 email priorities. And of course, after the poll, we will ask the experts to give a little bit feedback on the results of this poll. I see that everyone is answering very actively as well. All right. Still a lot of people who are answering. I'm going to close the poll in 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. So what are your top 3 email priorities after following this webinar? The main priority is reducing the information overload, followed by filing emails in the right matters and auto-archiving emails. Are these surprising results, Hans and Yves?
No, if I may, Hans, not really. In my perspective, reducing information overload, obviously, if you spend more than 3 hours a day, you have way too much information. And with that information overload, filing those emails in the right matters becomes a burden, becomes a mess. So the necessity for the automation in email archiving, it's not a nice to have. Like I mentioned before, it is really becoming a basic requirement. And reducing the information overload, you will be able to do so by intelligent technology, just as filing emails in the right matters will be able through intelligent algorithms that assist you in filing them, respecting confidentiality in the right email, in the right matters.
Thank you, Yves. Hans, do you have anything more to add?
Well, reduced information overload can of course be solved with technology, but it's also a matter of defining together with your colleagues your way of working. In our experience, information overload in 30 to 50% of the cases, it's due to the way of working that's applied in a certain organization. So also in just having a small discussion within your team on how you handle emails in regard of each other, if you use CCs, BCCs, and all those type of things, can already also reduce a little bit for a certain amount, more than a little bit, the amount of emails. So technology is one solution, but still it's communication between people. So also people need to agree on a way of working.
Okay, thank you very much, both of you. That was it for today. We've covered a lot of different topics about what email management is, what are the constraints, the needs, opportunities, and we've dived very specifically in the improvements on email management. You all saw how a software solution or a tool can help you with this. If you want to see more, I've just put a link in the chat box below. Then you can ask or request for a demonstration of, for example, Nolia. Yves already showed it a little bit, but we have a lot of more to offer. So if you are curious and if you want to improve the email management just by using the right legal tech solution, don't hesitate to ask a demonstration. It's for free and it's totally online. If you have any more questions for the experts, it's time to ask them right now in the chat box. We'll be with you for another 10 minutes. So if you have any more questions, drop them and one of the experts will answer them as soon as possible. And of course, we are very curious to hear what your thoughts are about this webinar. How useful was it for you? So please give us a rank. If you give us a 0, it means that you found it not useful at all. If you give us a 3, that means it was very useful for you. I'm going to start the feedback poll in a couple of seconds. And in the meantime, please do not hesitate to ask any more questions.
And as Sien mentioned before, the presentation of today will be sent to you by email.
Yes.
Hoping, of course, that email won't get lost in your information overload.
Indeed, indeed. I see that there are some people typing in the chat box, and also I see the feedback coming in. Please do not hesitate to share your score with us. Okay. I'm going to close the feedback poll in a couple of seconds. I think the experts are also very curious about the score. I'm going to close it in 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1. Okay. Yeah, that's a pretty good score, I think, Yves, Hans. We received a 2 or a 3. That means that the webinar was very useful for the audience, so we're very glad to hear that as well. And I see people who are also saying thank you and who are also very thankful that we will give them the presentation afterwards. Do you want to get inspired even more? We have a lot of more webinars coming up, more after the summer break, and also one on the 22nd of June. You can check the webinars on our website. It's the Nolia website, and you go to the Learn section, you click on webinar, and you can find a big overview, or you go directly to the ECLA website, where you can also see the program of the upcoming webinars. And our next one, also with Hans and Yves, will be about the future of workflow automation for legal teams. I've put it here, a little slide with the description and also a link how you can subscribe for free for that webinar on the 22nd of June as well. So hopefully we will all see you back on our next session. Please do not hesitate to stay in touch with us. You can always reach out to us by phone, by mail, of course, or you can fill in the contact form on our website. Thank you very much, Hans and Yves, for sharing all these very relevant insights. And I'm very happy to see you back on our next session.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sien.
Thank you from my side as well for another captivating session. As Sien mentioned, our next session will be on the 22nd. So not next week, but the week after on that Tuesday at 11 Central European time. So we hope to see everybody there as well. And until then, I hope that everybody stays safe and enjoys the weather. So thank you and goodbye.
Thank you very much,
Bye.
Martin.
Thank you. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.